Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Daryl. Welcome back to this Python for Finance series. In the previous lessons, we already know how to use Python to build a trading bot, deploy your strategies, and backtest your own strategies with more than 500 trading days. This setup is very flexible. In the last lessons, we deployed moving FH crossover strategies. And in these lessons, I will show you how easily that we can replace it with other strategies. To be specific, I will show you a MACD crossover strategies and how I implement it into an algorithmic trading bot and backtest with 2 years historical data. Let's go ahead and get started. Before we dive into the algorithms, there are a few things that I would like to modify. They are quite minor. So go back to the compute profit. Let's just shift it a little bit so that when we save the pictures, it would not cut some of the text. And this is for the total profit. And then for the profit, I also want to shift it a little bit. To make our main functions much more flexible, in this case, I will just change this MA to strategies. And then for the input, under the animate over here, I will just set it as false, set it as false, and set the strategies as true. And the final things that I would like to change is here. Because before we are using moving FH strategies. So right now, I just would like to change it to strategies. And then just like what I mentioned, this strategies, we are not going to use it anymore. However, I will just change it to a MACD strategies. The final things that I would like to change is to comment these 2 lines of code, or remove these 2 lines of code, and I will embed these functions into the MACD strategies. These 2 lines of code is to help me to remove the last trade. In that case, I would just like to embed it into these MACD strategies to make these strategies much more, I mean to keep everything inside these strategies to keep the code much more clear. There are a few MACD strategies that are commonly adopted. And for me, I will use these crossover trading strategies. This is that when the EMA line, that is the signal lines, cross above the MACD lines, this is considered a bearish signal. In that case, we will just sell the stock. On the other hand, when the MACD lines cross above the signal lines, that is the EMA line, this is considered a bullish signal. In that case, I will buy the stock. Because the histogram is the difference between the MACD and also the signal line. So in that case, when here you can see when the color is changing from red to green, that means that it's a buying signal. That is from negative to positive. On the other hand, when the color of the histogram is changing from green to red, that means from positive values to negative values, that is a selling signal. To make sure that is a strong signal, or the signal is strong enough, I will just make sure that these two lines, the MACD lines and also the signal lines, when I want to buy the stocks, they need to be below the zero. This is the zero line. And when I want to sell the stocks, I want to make sure that these two lines are above the above zero, so that it will make sure that it will make sure that the signal is, or the indicator is strong enough. And on the other hand, of course, you can also measure this the height or the bar to see how strong this signals is coming down, or how strong this signal is coming from. On the other hand, someone might just use the slope to confirm this kind of strength. But in my example, I will just I do not want to complicate the strategies. I just make sure that when I want to buy the stock, they have to be below the zero. When I want to sell the stock, they both of the lines have to be above the zero. So I just don't want to make things too complicated. Now we are ready to create these MACD strategies. Define the MACD strategies. First of all, we need to get the MACD value, including the MACD, the signal line, and also the histogram, by using the technical analysis functions, and use the MACD methods to get that. And the data that we are using is the closing price. Remember that I just tried to multiply it by 100 to make it, to convert it to a percentage format. And I'm going to rename the columns. When I use these TA functions, there will be three columns that inside this created inside this MACD data frame, that includes this MACD 1226 line. That is the MACD. I will just rename it to MACD. And then we will also have this MACD H, that is the histogram. And finally, that is the MACD S, that is the signal. So I just renamed the columns name and set it in place equals to true to make sure it changed the name. And then what I want to do is just concatenate it back to this data frame. So I'm going to use pd.concat, just concat these data with this MACD, and axis equals to 1. It means that I'm going to append the columns and reset the index, data index, and assign it back to the original data frame. And just like what we did in the MA strategies, I also would like to have the buy, sell, and record to make sure know when we buy and when we sell, and show them in the graph. At the same time, I also wanted to record the buy and sells to make sure I know which candles that it makes the buys, and also at what price that it make the buys, make the buy. And of course, it's this logic is same for the sell. I just want to know when it sell the stock at what price. For these times, I will just change it to a buy positions and sell positions, which will allow me to do some short sellings. And I will set these positions to false. It means that at the very beginnings, we are not holding any stock, or we are not selling any stock. Now let's create a for loop to start to create some logics that allow me that allow us to buy or sell the stock. For the first times, I will just set this when I is equals to 0 at the very beginnings, because at the very beginnings we don't have the previous data. We do not know whether or not this signal line is above or below the MACD. So in that case, we do not know whether or not there's any crossover happens. So in that case, at the very beginnings, I will just do nothing. So in that case, I will append the NAN into the buy and sell. That means we are doing nothing. Remember that this signal line is created by these MACD, that is the 9 periods exponential functions of the MACD. So in that case, in that case, before that it can create this signal lines, and the data is appended with NAN. So in that case, we need to make sure that there is some data in the signal lines, or there's some data in the histograms before we can trade the stock. So in that case, I will just put a else if conditions. That means we need to have some data in these histograms in order for me to do some actions. And because we are checking the, we always need to check the previous actions, the previous MACD or the previous signal lines, so that we know it's going up or going down in that case, or there's any crossover happens. So in that case, I will just use I-1s over here to make sure there's something in the previous step. In that case, if there's nothing in this MACD, I will just append nothing, append an NANs and append an NAN to the buy and sell. And now is the time for us to check the buying or selling signals before we enter the market. And in this case, just like what I mentioned, I would like to check the histograms before and after. The first logic that I would like to check is that whether or not this histogram in previous steps is negative. If that is in previous steps, that is a let me get back. Yep, in previous step that is a negative, and then in the current steps that is positive. It means that there's a crossover happens, and in that case, because previous step is negative and the next and the current step is positive, it means that it's a buying signal. On the other hand, if this histograms in the previous step is positive and then in the current step is negative, it means there's a crossover happens and there's a selling signal. So this is what I'm going to create. So I will check whether or not this is less than 0 in the previous step, and then in the current step whether or not it is larger than 0, and in that case it will trigger a buying signal. And this is an, of course this is an, and this is an if condition statements. And at the same time, there's another logic. Just like what I mentioned at the very beginning, I just want to make sure that this signal is strong enough. That means I need to make sure that these two lines are below 0. In that case, I just need to make sure that they are negative. So I will check the logic for the MACD. This is the MACD logic, and check where is less than 0 at the current step. And also I will check the logic of the signal line in the current steps as well. And so if this logic is correct, that means we can, this is a buying signal. This is to check the buying signal. And if that is correct, I will then just check if I have any stocks on hand. If I want to buy something, at the same time, if I already have a sales positions, in that case, that will just complete my transactions. Because I have a selling positions, if I want to buy something, it will then help me to just complete these transactions. So there are a few things that I want to do is that I want to know the price, the buying price, and I'm not selling anything. So continuous the sell will be append NAND. But now I need to switch. I need to make sure that the position is correct, because if I have sell, this should be true. Sorry about that. If I have a sales positions, and then in that case I buy something, so these sales positions will becomes false from true. That means in previous steps we are already selling something, and after we buy something, it will just cancel out these positions, and in that case I need to set these positions to be false. And finally, I can append the informations into the records, including which candles that it happens, or which minutes that this trade happens, and at what price, and what did I do. This is a buy action, so just make it a buy. On the other hand, when I want to buy something, in that case, I do not have anything sold before. So in that case, I can just get in and buy something. But of course, I do not hold at this point. I do not sell something previously, and at the same time, I do not have any buying positions. That means I do not have the sales positions and buy positions, and then I will come to these conditions, and then I will just get into the market and buy the stock, and I'm not selling anything. So in that case, this time, these buy positions will become true. Now we are holding some stock. And finally, of course, I also want to just keep this as a record. Else, I'm doing nothing. That means if I'm not holding any stock, but any sell positions, but at the same time, I already have a buying positions. That means I already have the stock, so I'm not going to continue to buy anymore. So in that case, I will just do nothing over here. So these will complete these buying logic. So that means we're going to check whether or not the histogram will change from negative to positive. And then if this histogram change from negative to positive, I will check another conditions whether or not these two lines are below 0. And these are the logic. And once we have this set up, we have this signal, we want to find whether or not we are holding any positions. In that case, if we are holding a sell positions, we will then just buy the stock and then complete these trading actions, one sell and then one buy, complete these transactions. So in that case, I do not hold any stock anymore. And on the other hand, if I do not have any selling positions, I do not have a stock on hand. So in that case, I will just buy some stock because it's a positive signal for me to enter the market. And finally, just in case, I already have the stock. So I'm not going to increase my risk. I'm not going to buy the stock twice. In that case, I am not going to do anything. And that is for the buying signal. And then for the selling signal, it would be the flipping of these logic. So first of all, I just need to make sure that these two lines are above 0. So in that case, I just change these two logic. And then I need to change these logic. Is that in previous steps, whether or not it is larger than 0 in the histogram. So that is larger than 0 in previous steps. And then after that, whether or not it becomes a negative. That is the current state, whether it becomes a negative. So if all these conditions are correct, are true, in that case, I will sell the stock. So the first things that I would like to check is that I have any stock on hand. If I have the stock on hand, I'll just sell it out. So I'm not going to buy anything. So the buy appends NAN, and because I'm going to sell something, sell my current positions. So the sell, I would like to use the current stock price. And once we hold the stock and sell the stock, of course, buy positions and sell positions will become false. That means we are no longer holding anything. And finally, of course, I would like to append the information into the record, the I that represents which minutes or which candlestick that I sell the stock, and then at what price. And this is a selling actions, so I just name it as sell. So on the other hand, if just in case if we do not hold any stock, so now it's time for us to short sell the stock. And in this case, I would like to check whether or not I have any short selling positions. If I have any short selling positions, of course, I'm not going to short it again. But just in case, if I do not have any shorting positions, in that case, I will just short it. In that case, for the buy, again, just append NAN because it's a selling actions. And for the sell, I'm just use the selling actions and appends the price in this sell list. And of course, now the sell, this is not a buy positions. I'll just keep it false And now we are selling something. So we are holding a selling positions. In that case, I will just change it to true. And of course, I want to append the record into that will give me additional informations later on. And just in case, if I do not have any stock on hand, at the same time, I already have a selling positions, short selling the stock or the ETF. In that case, I'm not going to short it anymore, even though it's a selling signal. So I will just do nothing over here. And in this case, this is to check the selling signal. And let me repeat it once again. So when these two lines are above 0, that is the MACD and also the signal lines are above 0, and at the same time there's a crossover happens. That is the histogram changing from green to red. That means the histogram is changing from positive to negative. So if all these four conditions are fulfilled at that point, that is a selling signal, so I will sell the stock. And of course, it depends on whether or not I hold any stock to perform that selling actions. If I hold a stock, it will just sell out my current positions. If I do not hold any stock, and in that case, it will just help me to do a short selling over here. And of course, if I already have a sell positions, that is, I'm already short selling something, I'm not going to increase my risk and short selling it again. And finally, all the thing will be appended back to the original data frame, just like what we did in this moving average strategies. Just append all the tradings back to the data frames and then return the data and also the record. And I will do the similar things over here. Just return data and record. But because I do not want to hold the trade to the next day, so for example, if I have a buy positions or sell positions, I do not want to hold this trade to the next day. In that case, I will just assume it has been canceled out for that trade. And in that case, I will check whether or not the record, this is the record, that is whether or not this is an odd number. In that case, if I have a buy action and sell actions, and that is an even number, and then these two trades will cancel out each other. So in that case, whenever I have an odd number, in that case, it means that I'm going to holding some positions to the next day. That is what I want to avoid. So in that case, if that is an odd number in the record, I will just cancel out that trade. So what I'm doing here is that if that is a buying trade or if that is a selling trade, check whether or not this is a sell in the record or this is a buy in the record. So you can see this is the indexing is -1, the last trade, and then the second, this is 0, 1, and this is the second element. So I just check it whether or not it's a buy or sell. If that is a buy, I will just cancel out buy trade. That is the positions. Sorry, not the position. This is the buy. This is the last one in these record. So I will just set it as an NAN, cancel out that trade. On the other hand, if that is a sell, I will just go to the sell list and then cancel out the last trade, set it as an NAN. And for my entire record, I will just remove the last element. There's one last thing that I need to change, that I need to add, is that when these two conditions are not satisfied, that means there's no crossover happens at all. In that case, I will do, so there should be 3 else over here. And finally, I also want to make sure that, yep, this is the MA. I also need to change it to strategies. Now the things has been set up. Let's run the program. Let me show you some results. Let's say, for example, let's take day 2 as an example. And here, let me try to zoom in. And say, for example, for the last pair of trades, over here you can see that there is a selling signal. In that case, it will just trigger this sell. And then finally, down over here, there's a buying signal. In that case, it will just help me to buy the stock again, to just complete these trades. And we can always go back to the backtext folders and find the last image to check our final positions. And here you can see the total profit over here is around 200 for these trading strategies. And that is quite awesome. In these lessons, I just showed you how to build a MACD crossover strategies and how I implement it into a trading bot and backtext it with 2 years historical data. And I will continue to build different strategies. So see you in the next video. Bye bye.